and I ended up doing street drugs, and then I ended up getting into it really bad.
We're looking at marijuana and other things as being gateway drugs, and actually the so-called medications are a greater gateway drug.
The Ritalin drugs are backfiring big time, because if the child is already disruptive and he takes cocaine, he's going to be a lot more disruptive after he's taken it. It is not going to calm him down.
Boom, she got on the drugs and her personality changed, her behaviors changed, they became erratic and dark and violent, and it was just a nightmare.
He kept having adverse reactions, becoming very, very angry. He could not control his behavior, he couldn't control his temper.
He was on 5 different psych meds, Prozac and lithium, and he was 7 years old. And he was unable to function. He would have rages and then crying and all kinds of just violent rages, grabbing knives and all of this.
The list includes 15-year-old Kip Kinkle withdrawing from Prozac when he shot 22 classmates, killing 2 after murdering his mother and stepfather at his home in Springfield, Oregon. 18-year-old Jason Hoffman on Effexor and Celexa when he opened fire at his California high school, wounding 5. 15-year-old Sean Cooper on a mix of antidepressants when he shot students in Idaho. And 17-year-old Eric Harris on Luvox when he and partner Dylan Klebold killed 12 classmates and a teacher in the bloodiest school massacre yet, Columbine.
And all of this overshadows the very reason children came to school in the first place, to get an education. Since 1970, the United States has fallen from 9th to 28th place in worldwide academic standing. While during that same period, the number of American school children labeled with learning disorders has skyrocketed, and the sales of ADHD drugs have multiplied 32 times.
Children don't ask for psychiatric drugs. Children don't ask to be diagnosed. They don't want to be called crazy. So you ask the classic Roman question, legal question, cui bono, who benefits? The people who make the diagnosis.
Okay. All right, we saw the DVD, Making a Killing. What are some of the other alternative forms of psychiatric treatment as opposed to the whole, using the drug thing? Obviously that's bad. I mean, is it ever beneficial?
Well, here's the thing. There's lots of different things from lobotomies, electroshock, the pills, obviously, and so forth. According to the American Medical Journal, in an article they released just last month, these treatments well, the drugs are no better than a sugar pill when compared in a study where people with similar problems, similar mental health issues, took a sugar pill thinking that it was an antidepressant or an antipsychotic or whatever it was that they were trying to treat. There was very little difference.
Right, except for the tremendous negative side effects.
Exactly.
I mean, you would think they'd be better off just giving you a sugar pill. I know Scientology, I don't know about the Citizens Commission, but I know Scientology is against all drugs, drug use in general. What about over-the-counter drugs? I mean, do they enter into this? Not really.
There's actually no stance as far as drugs. Things that are based on medical science that are going to improve your life and so forth. Yes, you should see a doctor if you get shot or if you have cancer or something like that.
Right.
But in a situation where they have no tests to prove that the condition is based on a physical illness, there's no x-rays, no blood tests, no brain scans, nothing. And yet they continue to prescribe these drugs that cause psychotic breaks, that cause people to commit violent crimes, murdering themselves, their families, their loved ones. It's pretty plain to see that this is an issue.
Right.
And just to kind of correct maybe a misconception, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights welcomes people of any walk of life, of any faith.
Right,
Muslims,
it's not
Sikhs,
Scientology,
exactly. Yeah, it's not. It was founded by the Church of Scientology and a doctor of psychiatry.
Right.
Right, and we welcome all people into our group.
Now, what's the history of psychiatry? I mean, they don't really have that much of a scientific basis. I know for many years it was ridiculed and just thought as a quack profession. What does your organization think? Well,
We've done a lot of research into it. And there are so many different branches. You could trace it back to, say, the Eugenics Project, which was a project started back in the 1800s by the psychiatric community to justify racism and slave ownership. They said that because people had darker skin, they were genetically inferior. This is from the psychiatric community, genetically inferior, and that those are still used commonly to, motivate hate groups and so forth.
Right.
And so there's that. Then you also have like electroshock therapy. It got its birth based on the fact that some doctor noticed that, hey, people with epilepsy tend not to have mental disorders, and people with mental disorders tend not to have epilepsy. So you can see there's not really a whole lot of scientific thought in that. But he thought, right. So he thought if I could just introduce a situation where it simulated an epileptic seizure, maybe people would get sane. So they tie people to beds, and this is something that's still practiced today. They tie people to beds, and it's called electroconvulsive therapy now, because that sounds more politically correct.
Right.
But they shock a person with enough electricity to kill a cow.
Wow.
Yeah, and sometimes they inject them with morphine or insulin or other drugs to kind of, knock them out or make it look as if it's not that much more painful. But many people die from this. Many people lose their memory. It's a terrible situation.
So what do you say to people who say, well, I've been taking these drugs for years and they're beneficial to me, they help me, deal with depression or I mean, what do you say to them? Do you advocate them getting off of the drugs? Or?
I do, and the reason why, and I have to go back to that American Medical Journal. This is one of the most widely recognized groups in the field of medical science.
Right.
And they say it's as effective as a sugar pill. Newsweek actually, in response to that article, came out and said they're basically expensive Tic Tacs. Tic Tacs that could cause you to go insane or nausea, vomiting, suicidal tendencies. You're better off just not taking it. I don't suggest that anybody just come off them by themselves.
Right.
They need to seek out a competent medical doctor, and at any time they can also call us. Again, our phone number, 615-669-CCHR.
Okay, and we'll have that on the screen as well. So if parents have kids on, Ritalin or these different kind of drugs, they can call you and you can refer them to medical help that they can get to try to, get off of these drugs before, especially if they're having, problems with it. A lot of the times it seems like the drugs cause more problems than what they had beforehand.
They do. They do. And while we're not a medical referral service, we will investigate and expose these psychiatric abuses and do our best to make sure that there is stiffer legislation passed and so forth. And we will get them in the hands of people who can help them.